All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the August 5th, 2024 workshop for the Greenville City Council. I'm Mayor P.J. Connolly. How about I'll preside over this one today?
Sounds like a winner.
First, we're calling on our city clerk for the roll call.
All right, Mayor Connolly.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Daniels. Present. Councilmember Foreman. Councilmember Blackburn. Present. Councilmember Scully.
Here.
Councilmember Robinson.
Here.
Councilmember Willis. Here. All right, Mayor Connolly, have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We're on to the approval to this afternoon's agenda.
No changes, Mayor.
All right, we have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion been made by Councilmember Blackburn, second by Councilmember Scully. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Motion passes 5-0.
Move on to new business.
Thank you, Mayor. First item up under new business is update on proposed text amendment to allow vertical mixed use. Call forward Chief Planner Shantae Gooby for the presentation.
Good afternoon.
All right, I'm going to preface this. This is a text amendment that city staff has been working on. We did provide an update to council in June of 2023, so there's going to be a few of you who have not seen this before, okay? I did want to go ahead and highlight we did 3 community engagement meetings. We held those June 4th, 5th, and 6th. 2 of those were in person, and then 1 was virtual. At that meeting, we had some handouts. We had the vertical mixed use FAQ, which is what you see on the left. We had a map showing what properties this could affect. And then we also had the actual ordinance language. So these are the things that were in your meeting packet. And then also, if you looked at your FAQ, you're going to find that my slides follow it in order. So first of all, vertical mixed use, why are we talking about this? Horizons 2026 has this included in various different places within our comp plan. Specifically, it talks about the need to adopt regulations for vertical mixed use. And then sometimes on our future land use plan, you'll hear me talk about the future land use plan recommends mixed use. And so this, again, is tying all back to the vertical mixed use. First of all, so what is vertical mixed use? It is a multi-use building, and it has to have a mix of residential and non-residential uses in that building. When I say non-residential units, you can think of retail, restaurants, offices, etc. Typically, those are going to be located on your ground floor, and then your residential units are going to be located on your upper floors. That can be condos, it can be apartments. These regulations allow for new construction, but it also allows for existing buildings to be converted as well. And so the pictures here just kind of give you just a little cross-section of what this building would look like. Again, to your left, you have office on the bottom, residential above, and on the right-hand side, you have retail on the bottom, office, and then residential. And so it's basically a mix and match, except for you do have to have a residential and a non-residential component.
So, real quick, does that include like places that have the gyms on the bottom floor and things like that?
If it is for public use, yes. Not for those like the apartment complexes that have it specifically for the tenants. So when we do talk about that, we do mean for public uses.
Okay, thank you.
This is an example that we currently have. This is the proximity at 10th Street. If you will remember, if you've been in Greenville long enough, this used to be a convenience store, some restaurants, even some single-family homes. All of those properties were bought and assembled together, and so we have the proximity. It is geared towards students. It's across the street from ECU. You do have some non-residential on the bottom. Currently they have Chase Bank and a FedEx, and then they have apartments above. Students obviously can drive a car, but they can also bike and walk to campus as well. This is just a small-scale example that I found. This is in Texas. This was a building that was refurbished. They've got some non-residential on the bottom. They have surface parking to the back of the building. You can't quite see it, but it's there. And again, I'm just showing you this because this is much smaller. There's about, I think about a dozen units on the second and third floor. This is a large-scale example. This is here. This is in Asheville. If you've ever been there, this is a really nice place to go. 42 acres. It has over 500,000 square feet of various non-residential uses, and you can see those are public uses. And then it also has about 275 multifamily units. So what are the benefits? So one of the first benefits you think of is that this does allow for development of smaller properties. So anytime you develop property, the numbers, right, the math has to make sense. And many times right now we have small lots that are undevelopable simply because the economics doesn't work. Vertical mixed use would allow someone to have a smaller lot and build vertically and go up to add floors. This also helps you to fill in those smaller lots that have not been developed. And it also hopefully serves to keep development more in the center as opposed to on the fringes and the edges. This promotes walkability. If you have more people, then this is a time where your public transit can be used. It would allow people to walk to work. This does offer another choice of housing. We talk about that a lot. And then this does help to decrease impervious surfaces or parking lots. So the standards are, again, it has to be one building. It has to be at least 2 stories. You have to have your residential and your non-residential component. Your bottom floor should be pedestrian oriented, and what that means is as the public are walking by, your building should be open and welcoming and inviting, something that hopefully will bring them inside. One of the things that we did do with these standards is we did a 20% discount for parking. And what that means is if you take the parking spaces required for your residential and your non-residential, you add those up, and then you can take 20% off. And think about it, not everyone who uses a building like that are going to be there at the same time, right? You're going to share the parking between the 2 different kinds of uses. So how many residential units? So currently right now, the city standards for multifamily outside downtown, the highest density we have is for, and the easiest thing to do is look at my 2 squares here at the bottom. So if this square was 1 acre, you could do up to 18 units for 1-bedroom units. And then by the same token, that same 1 acre, if it were 2-bedroom units, you could do 15. So part of this is everybody needs to get a little bit of something. We don't all get what we want. There's a compromise. So what we have worked into these standards is a density bonus. This density bonus would allow a developer to have, I would say, unlimited multifamily units, but there are still constrictions to that. If they provide 25% of their required parking in either a parking garage, a parking deck, some kind of structured parking, okay? And so this is I call it the backside of the proximity. This is from Charles Boulevard. So this is their parking. They've done that, and they've attached it to where the apartments are. It is 5 levels, and I think it's about 560 parking lots. So, if you think about that is captured in just a couple of acres of parking that's been layered on top of one another as opposed to it being spread out. The carrot and the stick is parking structures are very expensive. They're going to cost you about $20,000 for a lot. Or for a space, rather. Surface parking runs about $5,000. So again, we have to have the carrot and the stick, and we have to make it work. So again, we do have a density bonus rolled into this, but you do have to provide 25% of your parking in some kind of structured parking.
Quick question, the Louis and all those things, that still applies? In other words, no more than 3 per unit or 4 if you've got a Louis, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. But the benefit to the city also is, again, you're decreasing the amount of parking space or impervious surfaces that you have. This is two other kinds of examples of structured parking, and essentially where you see the green is where the parking would be. And basically, this parking is integrated into the building as opposed to set aside. Number 6, it looks a little confusing, but it's not. All it simply is showing you is that there's a minimum and a maximum for your residential and your non-residential. Because again, to do this kind of project, you have to have both types of uses. Number 7, so this is talking about the standards for the lot sizes. There isn't a minimum lot size, again, because we recognize that we're going to be working with smaller lots. However, there is a minimum of 2 stories. And then the setbacks vary depending on the zoning district you're in. But for the public street or the front, that's going to vary from 1 to 40. And then your side and rear, the least is 5, but it's actually your buffer yards are going to dictate. So I'm going to give you some examples of how this would work. So in this example, and again, these were the same slides for my public engagement, and that is if you live in a single-family home, how close could this type of use be to your home? Let's say that your house backed up to vertical mixed use. I show you this a lot. This is a snippet out of the buffer yard chart, and so this is showing you that it would be 30 feet wide. It's giving you the amount of trees. However, a developer can reduce that to 15 feet with a fence. Okay, so it would either be 30 or 15. These other examples are what I would call single uses. So if your home backed up to a restaurant, you would have a 20-foot buffer. You would have your normal vegetation that would be required, and they could reduce that to 10 feet. If your home is beside of apartments, you have 10-foot buffer, and that can be reduced to 8 feet with a fence. And so the takeaway from this is that the vertical mixed use does have a wider setback than a single use. These standards also require a certain amount of transparency. Transparency is essentially the openings, the doors, and the windows of the building, right? Having doors and windows generally are more inviting. They're more interesting to the eye. So this is, again, one of these kinds of projects where there's a little take and a little give if someone wants to do something like this. So we did have transparency standards. So for your ground floor, that requires 50% opening, right? I've got this little picture in here, but essentially it's some math doing percentages. Your ground floor is required 50% openings, windows and doors. Again, people can see in. Hopefully it's more inviting. And then your upper floors are 20%, so it's reduced. We also require architectural features, and those are windows, their doors, their accents. I have taken a picture of just a blank wall of a building. And so we do require some features to be added where we do not want long blank walls. And so an example that I have chosen, this is Dickinson Lofts. So this is off of Dickinson Avenue. This shows a lot of the things that our standards require. This was just an example that we had in the city that I thought was easy to sort of see and understand. You can see at the bottom, they've got that row of bricks above the first floor. That's a cornice. If you notice, they vary in texture. They've got brick, they've got siding, and then in the upper right-hand side, it's a little hard to see, but you can see how the buildings have different planes. It's sort of one wall pulls up further than the other. And again, to provide some visual interest to the building. These projects are reviewed. They are submitted just like other things we have, but they have to have a 3D model with them. In that 3D model, they're required to give us the number of buildings, building elevations. That means what the building will look like, what you see. That's called a building elevation. The number of parking spots. They have to give us the layout of the floor plans, meaning the apartments, what size they are. The square feet of the commercial space or non-residential space, and then also the number of residential units. And these are reviewed and approved by city staff, GUC, and then NCDOT if it's on the DOT maintained road. So there are 12 districts that would allow this use. The easiest way to see this is this map. If you see green on this map, that means it's one of those 12 districts that I showed you. The takeaway from this that you hopefully will see is that most of the green is running along our roads, our corridors. You see it runs along Greenville Boulevard, it runs along Evans Street. And my point in showing you this is that this is not interior to neighborhoods. This is where your commercial tends to be located along roads. So with council's blessing, if you would like to move forward, this text amendment can be scheduled to be considered by the Planning and Zoning Commission at their August meeting, and then that would come to council at your September 12th meeting. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Awesome. Thanks for the question. I'm just kidding.
Y'all know I got questions. Shantae, I could not love this more. Love this. I love the way you presented it. Just love all the features of it. And I just had a couple of questions. In some ways, this has already been possible just on a small scale, such as downtown. Is that right?
Downtown, one could do it in downtown right now, yes.
And I guess my question is, this otherwise, though, other than downtown, could not have been done prior to this ordinance. Is that right?
That's correct. You could not go into some of our other commercial districts or even in the hospital area and do a mixed-use building like this. It would have to be single-use buildings.
And then buildings like Proximity, the Dickinson Avenue, they did it, was it through a special use permit or?
They did it. They have a separate use. We've got a couple of different ones. So we do have we have a version of those. I will say that they tend to be geared more towards student and not market rate apartments.
Perfect. It could be office, doesn't have to be commercial. It could be office on the ground floor.
Anything non-residential, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments? Thumbs up's a good thing.
Thank you, Ms. Goody.
Thank you.
I'm coming back.
Can't wait. Can't wait.
So don't get it too soon.
Thank you, Mayor. Number 2 is the discussion on the creation of a Village of the Arts District. I will again call for City Chief Planner Shantae Goody for the first session.
I missed you.
Oh, gosh, I think I took the clicker with me. I'm sorry. Just to give you a little bit of background information, this was, City Council passed a motion in June of last year to look at a zoning overlay district for a Village of the Arts and then come back with possible ordinance to adopt. So for staff's understanding, this is what staff's, what we worked off of as we're bringing this to you, would be to look at other jurisdictions that allow persons to live, work in their residences that are mainly focused on arts and where this can be in a specific geographic area, essentially to create a village. So this was staff's understanding as we were undertaking this of what we were working toward. And so this presentation, I'm going to give you the city's current regulations that deal with home occupations. And I think now we're at a point where, we can talk about live, work, and home occupations, and they're almost synonymous. They work together. So if you hear me say one or the other, it's the same thing. I'm going to give you some regulations from some other jurisdictions that are very similar to the Village of the Arts concept. And then I'm going to give you some solutions and ask for some guidance on how to move forward. This is a table set up. This is the home occupation regulations for Greenville. I've got some other tables for some other places. They're essentially going to be set up the very same way. If someone would want to live and work in their home in Greenville, there are two options that they have. We have what's called a home occupation. That requires a special use permit from the Board of Adjustment. This is only allowed in single-family homes. This would allow the resident to have one additional employee. There are some size restrictions, but the big thing, and what I put the big red square around, is it doesn't allow you to sell products on site. So that presents a problem if you're an artist or a sculptor or something along those lines, because you are literally selling a product, okay? And an example for a special use, a home occupation, I'm going to show you some examples. But we've had those already, a salon, daycare, dog grooming. Again, you're providing a service, not a product. And then we do have the incidental home use. That's a much more pared down kind of use. And again, you still have the same problem. You can't sell products. Within our table of uses, we do have 4 specific home occupations. Again, special use permit, only in single family. For letters B, C, and D, those are very specific, but in A, you see we always have the otherwise not listed, and we have that sprinkled throughout our table of uses. That one in particular is allowed in 12 different zoning districts. Your home occupation not otherwise listed, these different kind of businesses have been given a special use permit. These are those 12 districts that I spoke about, and this is a map. So it's in blue. This represents one of those 12, any of those 12 districts. The takeaway from this that hopefully you can see is these are residential neighborhoods. There may be an edge of a neighborhood along the street, but by and far they're typically, I would call them internal. The incidental accessory use I spoke of earlier, again, this can be in any kind of residential dwelling. It is less intensive, no employees, no more than 2 customers at a time, meaning it's not open to the public. And again, it doesn't allow on-site sale of products. And again, this is just a quick recap of what we just talked about. So then we started looking for other jurisdictions that allowed something similar to what we've been tasked with. So we were looking for some kind of live-work theme focused on the arts. We were also looking for where it was limited to a specific geographic area, again, to create the village feel. So the ones that we were able to find, we have Asheville, then we have Aston, Pennsylvania, Bradenton, Florida, Blacksburg, Virginia, and Paducah, Kentucky. So this is that same table. It is laid out just like when I showed you earlier. I'm going to run through these, but I don't want to go really deep on them, but I do want you to know what we found. Asheville has what they call their River Arts District. They allow home occupations in this area the same way across the city. But they do allow the resident plus an employee, and they allow for the sale of products on site. Bradenton, Florida, you're going to find is an outlier on many of these things. So one of the things that a couple of the things just in this table, if it is an arts-related home occupation, planning staff can approve it. All others go to their Board of Adjustment. They allow the resident plus 2 employees. You can have this in your home, in an accessory structure, Or you can have it in an accessory dwelling structure and use your entire home for the business. So it is an outlier of most of the things you're going to see. Blacksburg, Virginia, they have a specific area. They have two versions, just like Greenville. They have a license that can be provided by staff, but if you have employees, you're going to have to go to their Board of Adjustment. And then the last two, Aston, Pennsylvania, this is a conditional use by their town commissioners for all of them. And then, and as you can see, their conditions are made at the commissioners' meeting. There's not a lot of hard and fast rules. And then Paducah, this program we did find out is no longer being offered. They still have two businesses that are still in operation, but that kind of just adds some more information for us. And again, they have it set up where you can do a staff approval or you may have to go to Board of Adjustment. And that's mainly determined if you have employees. So I'm just going to show you just a couple of maps to give you an idea of what these things look like. So for Asheville, their specific area is what is shown in that purple rectangle. And then if you make it a little bit bigger, this is about a 2-mile stretch along the river in Asheville, and this is where their specific district is located. Bradenton, Florida, so in that black circle is where their area is. It's 36 acres, and there are approximately 30 properties that participate in this. So, as I said, it's a little outlier, so I've taken a couple of pictures from Street View. Again, this is where you can live in your home, work out of it, or you can have your business in accessory buildings in the back of the building. Here's another one, and this is just several blocks within the city. You will notice, if you do Street View, they have a lot of signage for this. They have maps letting you know where you're located at, so this is different than the rest of the city. Blacksburg, Virginia, what you see in light blue is where their home occupations can be located. They only had two. We were able to get this street view of one of the businesses. Aston, Pennsylvania, again, they have regulations. They did not have any businesses at this time that were using these standards. So if we look at all of these in totality, again, we were looking at art-centered businesses. We were looking for essentially what planners would call an overlay district. Basically, it is limited to a specific geographic area. This is important because the city needs to enforce the regulations, but also, depending on how you feel about this, it also helps to set the expectations of the neighborhood that it's located in. And then they also have limits on size and scale, so they were still looking at the number of employees that could be there, if customers were only allowed by appointment, or was it open to the public all day. Many of these did have stated hours of operation, or they deferred back to their noise ordinance. And the reason is because, for me, I'm going to say 8 o'clock at night is getting kind of late. I want my house and I want everybody else's house to be quiet. Other people are night owls, right? So they have put this in place to help to minimize noise or any kind of nuisance from one house to the next. Typically, the businesses are going to be open to the public, and that's when you are going to require a special use permit. Again, Bradenton is the only jurisdiction that allows you to use your house for the business, and then you can live in an accessory dwelling unit. So, consideration for our next step, again, staff is looking for some guidance on if council desires to move forward with the Village of the Arts concept, and then further, what Any kind of change we make would be a text amendment, just as all other text amendments are. So this would still have to go to P&Z, and it would still come to council for final approval. Some things to think about are, potentially modifying our current standards for home occupations. The big thing with that would be to allow the on-site sale of products. Now, do you want to limit that to arts-based, or is that for everyone? The second option could be doing an arts-focused home occupation and putting it in a specific geographic area. And what I mean by that is, saying it's going to be bounded by 1st Street and 5th Street and, avenues, right? So a very specific area. Is this something that should be permitted by right, or is this something that should require a special use permit? If you don't want to go to the specific geographic areas, then what zoning districts would it be appropriate? And then the last one, go back to number 1. We just talked about vertical mixed use, and that the vertical mixed use could be an alternative for the Village of the Arts, meaning you could have residential and non-residential in one building. So it does allow you to have the live-work concept. And then I'm going to show you a map that will maybe help you. So I showed you this map in number 1. This shows the districts where the vertical mixed use could be located. Those are those districts. And then what I've done is I've given you a map that essentially they're opposites of one another, right? So you can see that the green is vertical mixed use. That runs along your corridors. And then your blue, that is where the home occupations not otherwise listed is located. There's only one crossover, and that's one district. That's the CDF district. Otherwise, they're complete opposites of one another. I've got my same slides. I don't want to belabor this. I'll be glad to answer any questions or, talk this through a bit more. And so I'm going to stop talking.
Absolutely, go for it.
So I have 2 things. One, have we spoken with the individuals who live within these communities?
Staff reached out to all of the different locations that we call, yes.
Okay. Have we received any opposition to it at all?
You're talking about that area.
Oh, no, this is our first time out of the gate.
Yeah.
Okay. And also, so there'll be homes in these districts, in the art districts?
These are, I'm going to click back one. So if you see blue, right, those are essentially residential neighborhoods. So,
right. So it'll be...
It will be in neighborhoods. That means there could be one house in the middle of a block that does this.
Okay.
Unless it's an overlay.
Right, in an overlay, right.
Okay.
But it would still, at that point, you would have designated a certain specific area.
Yeah, I think the last slide that Shantae was on is a really good summary of basically what Shantae is seeing. If you go back to that home occupation not otherwise listed, you could allow that to sell product, sell goods like an art good, a piece of art within those 12 zoning districts. You'd have to modify the home occupation not otherwise listed. If that's not the direction you want to go, then you could look at the overlay. Creating a text amendment to create the overlay, you would just have to identify which geographic location you would want that to be in, which communities, which blocks, which neighborhoods. Right. And I think what we saw, and Shanta, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think what staff saw is that this was driven by certain neighborhoods. Certain neighborhoods wanted this in their community. So just like the couple that came to speak to council last year, they wanted it in their community. So it's something that the overlay would be community driven. Is the right way to say it.
Yes, I would think that there would need to be some community engagement for setting expectations, right, of what does this look like, what does this feel like.
I think to your, I think your point, Councilmember Daniels, is that you would not want to create an overlay in an area that, in a neighborhood that didn't want it.
Right, or even, excuse me, I'm not sure housing-wise if there are HOAs and different things like that that would prevent that. And I know we're two separate entities, but we would be creating a rift almost.
Well, that would trump our regulations, right?
HOAs do?
That is correct.
Okay. I don't think I knew that.
That was going to be my question, to the extent of what restricted covenants.
Oh, yeah.
On the property, bind the homeowners as to what they can and cannot do.
That's right. They could get approval from the city, but then their HOA wouldn't allow it. They could not move forward.
So to a large extent, have we had, is there a simple way, I say simple and not time consuming, to look at areas and figure out which ones have restricted covenants that would prohibit stuff like this? Because it's really wasting our time if we go past something, but the covenants say you can't do that. I don't care if you want to do it. I don't care if the city says you can do it. Our restricted covenants say you can't. Because I know a lot of homes in neighborhoods that I've looked at on that map that have covenants that talk about that.
You can have different covenants for every section of the same neighborhood, that sometimes they get changed. So you could have, let's just say Tucker. There's multiple sections of Tucker. So even like Tucker subdivision, they may have 10 different sets of covenants that may or may not be exactly the same.
Did you have questions?
Yeah, I'm going to go first. So going back to what Monica was saying, for me, I'm all about community engagement. And so I would think that there would need to be adequate community engagement to ensure that any neighborhood, with or without HOAs, that it was a neighborhood that citizens wanted. As it relates to businesses and neighborhoods, I tend to be exceptionally conservative. I noticed a second ago you said, at about 8 o'clock you would want things to start winding down. Well, that's me at 12. I do a lot of work publicly and serving people throughout the day. And I give and pour out throughout the day, but when I get home, I want peace and quiet. And so, I would tend to be very conservative as it related to something like that, because I would, be concerned about additional traffic, additional noise, what type of business. Oh my God, the color of those houses that were in that one picture. All of those type things, would need to be considered. And so I would tend to lean more conservatively to allow something like that, if at all, because we, function in a culture where people don't tend to lean towards considering how their actions impact others, more so to what they want and desire.
Can I see if I can articulate that back to what you just said? Is that basically what I heard you say is that if we move down this direction, you would say that we probably need to look at first providing engagement to the community that this is possible, an overlay is possible, but the district, the community has got to want to drive it themselves. Saying like the block, the area, the street would have to be collectively would have to want.
Yes, to some, yes. That it would have to be driven by, a community asking for that, as opposed to communities that would not, be interested in it.
For example, if one person on a block wanted an overlay, but everybody else on the block did not want the overlay.
I just wanted, if I may, have you finished with your questions?
I'm not sure, but you go ahead.
Well, by all means, finish. I wanted to jump in, since I was the one that brought this issue to council last year, and had been talking with the people, the Cosgroves, who were very interested in it. I think they were from Bradenton, Florida. And just by way of context, I love all these questions and considerations. I think when I talked with the Cosgroves and when we initially brought it to council, the idea was more as an overlay. I see couple of different things happening here that I'm not sure related. Selling products in your home business, maybe that's something we need to consider separately. Maybe that's something that should take place as its own issue. But then the Arts District was supposed, at least the way I understood, the way the Cosgroves imagined it, and kind of the way I imagined it, is it would be a small area where maybe you had artists who wanted to come and live, or maybe the landlords wanted to dedicate that area for artists. It could be as small as, a block, or, one side of a block. It could just be a few houses. And it would be an overlay where this would take place. And I thought about in our center city, this would be a good fit. I didn't ever really imagine it going beyond center city, but it could if people wanted it. So I just wanted to provide that as context, that I kind of always imagined it as an overlay, and where there would be a sense of expression and creativity on the houses, and maybe the things that aren't ordinarily allowed, and that there could be events like art walks, and like we have our downtown, our First Friday art walk, that could become part of it. But the selling products, maybe that's a separate issue. Thank you.
What neighborhood were they looking at?
River Hills.
No, I'd love to see them, because you do think about what would it mean for your neighborhood, and Tanya, to your point about noise and all, I don't see this as like a rowdy kind of thing. I see it as an artist event.
Well, I think that's relative. So noise and all of that is relative based on the individual or the family. A lot of noise, any noise is a lot of noise if you're used to no noise. And so that's a relative statement. And then as it relates to parking and things of that sort, if someone is accustomed to having people visit their house and parking on a regular basis because of an individual business, and you're talking about art, but that could open up the floodgates for other types of businesses as well. And the one time you want to have a cookout, the once a year, you don't have adequate parking for your guests, because they always have people coming in and out of theirs. And so for me, it's all about consideration and thinking about how that could impact the people around them. If it's in a already business district or a slight overlay for downtown or what have you, I could understand just a tad bit better. But when you're going out into residential neighborhoods, again, I tend to lean a lot more conservative, because that's the purpose of me paying for a home, is to pay for my peace and quiet. And I would say that my neighbors would feel the same way.
And I think it's something that would be done only when houses wanted it and when neighborhoods wanted it. I think this is something that would be seen as an asset, as something that you'd like to have in your neighborhood. And I think the idea is to truly make it a village, a subset of our community. And Center City being the best fit, even commercial areas potentially being a good fit. And this might work very well with the mixed use that we just talked about. Where it could be, Village of the Arts could be incorporated into a mixed-use development. So, I brought it, I bring it to council just as something for us to discuss, as a way to create, again, more unique identity for our community, and to have these special assets that people say, they've got a downtown arts district that's really neat. Make sure you go and visit.
And I think, too, as to Councilmember Robinson's point, if we already have oppositions like the HOAs or anything, because I remember the young lady that came to us regarding the beauty shop being able to do hair in her home. Well, we passed it, but the state board didn't, so she still can't do it. So that was kind of a conversation that we meant well, but it didn't profit anybody, because she called me several times wanting to know what she could do when the state came to her house, but we're limited on that.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like
Mr.
to
Mayor.
make a suggestion. So we've heard about maybe not the desire to sell goods. What we could do is take this to our UDO committee, because they're going through this whole entire rewrite of the zoning ordinances, and bring this up as part of that discussion. If that's what council would be the wish of council to do.
I'm good.
That'd be good.
All right. Come on, Shantae, one more. We gave it 3?
And so the UDO, that goes into the community, correct?
Oh, gosh.
Okay.
Oh, gosh, yes.
I just got to make
Not
sure.
yes,
I know.
oh, gosh, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. That's a significant amount of public engagement.
Yeah.
It is, yeah, I just want to.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Here we go.
Item number 3 is the proposed residential curbside cart rollout service fee. I'll call forward Director of Public Works Kevin Mulligan for a presentation.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, Council. This item is, let's see, there we go. So this item, quality of life issue, that may not be as colorful as a arts district, but still it's important and speaks to the overall appearance, the aesthetics of our city. And this item does plan to address the many rollout carts. And I'll describe what the issue is we're trying to address. But we've seen our rollout carts that have been left for days at a time at curbside, or in some cases permanently. That is the permanent location of those carts. I'll also say that Mr. Bryant, our solid waste manager, myself, we've been working on this for a few months, and empirically, we have seen this problem increase over the last several years. We've seen this get quite a bit worse, so it's important to address this. Here's our agenda. I'll describe what the issues are with curbside carts, what our current ordinance is. So we do have language that addresses this, what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to bring your cart to the curb, when you're supposed to bring it back. Also, our current educational measures, how effective they are, what they are. And then, again, I think Chanté mentioned she looked at various cities, what they do. We've looked at various cities to get some ideas, and I'll talk about our proposed cart rollback plan, and then what our education and our plan for implementation, should council be supportive of that. So let me jump into what is the problem. Right? Here's the problem in a nutshell. Right? The blues and greens of our district. Right? The carts, and you can see here. Right? I think this is from Google Street View. Right? A lot of carts back at the house, and some carts still curbside. So, and if you can see it on Google Street View, that means this problem's been around. Right? So, and then here, as you're driving down the street, you see a lot of carts, again, on the curb and the sidewalk, in the street, taking up parking. Certainly, Public Works, City Manager received some complaints on this, and we see some ADA issues. So our ADA folks would have a tough time navigating this sidewalk due to the obstructions. I talked about the parking obstructions, right? That's a lot less area to park in. And then instances like this is the permanent location of these. So I leave for work, I take my bag of garbage with me, I drop it in the cart, and then go to my car and drive to work. Right? So that's not what we want. That's not what's on our books. So here's what's in the books. No later than daybreak of the day following scheduled collection. This is in our city code, Title 6 and 634. It must be removed and must be brought back behind the front line of the house. All right. Failure to do so, and you're liable for a civil penalty in the amount of $50 for any violation, except that my position is authorized to issue one warning prior to issuing a civil citation. All right, so $50 is on the books. That's the current code for failure to remove those. I also want to talk about this because our plan is in contrast to this language. Employees of the Public Works Department will need to roll or relocate roll-out carts, and our plan comes in conflict with that. All right, so in summary, our current ordinance is you can bring them out the night before and the day after service, remove them, and bring them past the front line of the house. Right in front of your house, that doesn't meet the intent of the code. It's bring them beyond the front line of your house. Our current educational plan, we use Public Works PIO, we use social media. Delbert and his crew, Mr. Bryan and his crew do a lot of cart stickers. We use mailers, we do knock and talk. Here are some of those stickers, and I think we may have passed them around, but this sticker, you see a lot of these throughout the neighborhood. The first paragraph there, first showing how important it is Failure to remove roll-out cart from curb to a place behind the front building line of your home by daybreak the day after service may result in a $50 citation. So that's the first paragraph there. And then a little blurry here, but more visual, is bring your cart back, and it shows you where to put it. All right. You can kind of see how effective the measure has been. This cart has 1, 2, 3, 4 stickers on it. Those carts have multiple stickers on it. So I think this is probably our target audience, the folks that have been repetitively educated on this, who do knock and talk if they're home. But this is what we're trying to avoid, right? Those carts that are in the sidewalk, that are right adjacent to the curb and over again, right? We're absolutely cognizant of the fact that every now and then there's a missed garbage collection, or there's a cart out for repair, or there's a late cart out. We're not looking for the one-off. We're talking about these carts that are out there on a repetitive basis. Current procedure for that, this is what I referred to in Section 6 of the City Code. $50 civil penalty. The civil penalty is to the property owner. Now, 60% of our residences in the city are renter-occupied. So hitting the property owner, there's a couple of things. Owners provided civil penalty instead of the party responsible for the removal of the cart, the placement and removal of the cart. So that news may not get back to the tenant, right? If we're mailing this to a different state to the owner of that property, this news may not get back to the tenant for weeks at a time. The ticket issuance would involve the police department and the volume, right? There's 45,000 carts out there. The volume of the issue we're talking about would be a difficult task for them to take on. And the biggest challenge, again, is that the ticket is issued right to the property owner, and the cart still remains at the curb. So our rollback plan proposal, our alteration to what is currently in our ordinance, Public Works staff would identify the improperly placed curbside cart. So today is Monday. So Wednesday, we would go to our Monday route, and we'd identify the carts that are there. The city staff would roll back the cart to the resident. We'd apply a sticker. We would knock at the door. We would provide documentation. We would record the address where this happened. All right, we'll use our existing software. I'll show you that in a second. Then the second and any subsequent violation, curbside violation, the cart would be rolled back to the home. A service fee of $50, similar to what's in our ordinance now, will be applied to their GUC account, the utility account. So it's not to the property owner, it's to whoever holds the utility account. And the letter and the photo will be mailed to the resident, informing them of the fee and showing them what the violation is. So we would roll it back, we would get rid of the problem, but we would charge the resident for that. And here's it in a nutshell. All right? Cart remains, we're going to document, we're going to put in our database, we're going to roll it back, and we're going to document that we're going to issue a citation, not issue a citation, we're going to put it on the utility bill. All right? But we will send a letter out with the picture and documenting what the violation was. All right? So summary. Cart rollback to curb by city staff. Resident receives educational sticker. If this happens twice in 6 months and 1 day, then that 6 months and 1 day would restart the educational process. Happens twice within 6 months, the cart would be rolled back and a $50 fee would be assessed to the utility holder. Again, documentation, the date, the picture would record what's happening out there, and we would send that to the utility holder. And Public Works staff would apply the fee to the GUC utility account. Communication plan, certainly the foundation, as we've talked about for any solid plan, is to get out in front of this. And with council support, we would certainly begin a communication plan that involves social media, Facebook's, the city website, Nextdoor, Twitter, the Reflector, local TV, cart stickers. Right? We've done these educational campaigns before when we changed the days of service for 12,000 residents. That was very effective. We used a lot of this. We used a lot of the cart stickers. So we would communicate this for several months. Our timeline. We're in August. This is the city workshop presentation. There would be some city ordinance revisions required, and during that time, if council is supportive of this, we would look to start performing some educational outreach. And then in November, we would kick off this campaign.
And in transparency, we got to understand, I mean, we've got ordinances on the books that we have not fully enforced. So, I mean, I don't believe that once the enforcement starts in the education, and this isn't to be punitive, this is to give warnings, this is to give ample opportunity to educate before we go down this route. And I do believe that once you enforce, it will take care of itself.
How long's it been since we actually gave, or have we ever given? I don't think I've ever heard about anybody getting one of those $50 fines.
Anybody what?
Has anyone ever gotten one of those $50 fines?
We have,
To date?
we have issued several fines, a special collection. I don't know that we've issued a $50 citation, because it is to the property owner. Generally, it is not the property owner doing it.
Couple of questions for you. Love this idea. My only concern is looking at our sanitation staff, and we're asking them to do the work that people are able, if they are able-bodied and don't have a variance or an exclusion. We're asking our sanitation staff to do the work that people should be doing themselves. And I wonder, is that reasonable to ask our staff to do that?
Right.
And do we have enough staff to do it? And are there any dangers for staff? Because one of the reasons we got rid of personal rollout is because it was dangerous for our staff. So
Yeah.
Can you respond to that a little bit?
Sure. So we've contemplated, talked about it with internal. How could we accomplish this? This is not a small scale issue. We looked at the use of retired personnel, and the carts should be empty. Right? We're talking about empty carts. We would bring back, we would probably place in the driveway and bring back near the front of the house so that the resident more than likely is forced when they're pulling their car in to get out and move the cart. Right? So it wouldn't block.
Do we have legal authority to be going on private property like that?
That's a good question. We need to research that. Maybe police power, but you risk the issue of the trespassing. You go on private property and take the cart back. And also some danger issues too, animals or dogs coming after them. So.
Or just people want to know why you walk around.
I'd say it's something
We can look at that.
Yeah, we're on private property collecting these carts with the backyard or with the special service that we provide. So we have precedent for doing that.
So Kevin, am I understanding what you're running into? You go empty the garbage cans. They're empty. You come back. Well, they stay out there the entire time. Mm-hmm. And you come back, they're full. Is that right?
So if we collect on a Monday, right, by ordinance, it should be removed by Tuesday morning.
Right.
We would come back on a Wednesday. If it's still, it should be relatively empty on a Wednesday. We would either move them back, but to your point, they may stay out there for the entire week.
Well, I'm asking, are they walking out from the house and putting garbage in and what about it? We're not babysitters.
Yeah.
We don't need to go through all that mess. That's babysitting people.
So one of the things, Merchant's Lot, Rose's Lot, Hodges Lot, we've had an issue there with a lot of litter, and we've started issuing tickets, and that problem has cleaned up pretty rapidly.
I just think that's a lot of work on already overly burdened. I mean, because I know he did a great job with last year, throughout and everything. We're putting more burden on them. At some point, we just got to accept, as council in the city, that you got to accept responsibility and accountability. If not, you're going to pay a price.
Yeah.
I mean, do they want to take the bag and put it in garbage can for them? I mean, this is kind of to the point where sometimes, and y'all know I don't have a filter, so we're being ridiculous. I mean, I think I'm all about let's educate before we punish or penalize people monetarily. Put it on a utility bill, put it there and go, we've got this problem. Do a campaign, we've got this problem, and this is when we're going to start to enforce it. Then put it on the utility bill. You shouldn't have to go back.
And that's what I'm hearing. So as far as the enforcement, that it's on the books, continue to move forward, make the adjustment of changes, but back off the carrying it back to the.
We got too much already on our staff.
And I do believe that once we start the enforcement and applying the citations, that it will take care of itself.
The only issue there is that you could end up with carts that remain there, and it hasn't addressed that issue, and you could get people who just pay the $50, month after month, or people who
That's
ignore.
going to be very, very expensive.
It'd be $200 a week. That'd be $200 hours. Or more.
Yeah, on a weekly
So
basis.
$50 is week, that could be weekly is what we're saying.
We apply the stickers or that's right.
I agree with Les on that. I got calls today from one of our county commissioners and 2 citizens who had noticed that we would be discussing this today and are really concerned about it and want us to enforce the issues. They even went as far as saying enforce the whatever the penalties are. They even said as far as having them take it to their backyard rather than the side of the house. So just wanted to express that citizens are paying attention and want us to enforce the rules.
Honestly, I do believe we will get applauded by the community for the enforcement of this. And, we did want to provide the option of also taking it back to the House for them. But if that's not a direction that council, we are fine with this. We love the support that you're giving and the community will give for the enforcement on this. It will provide a positive.
What y'all kind of let the people downtown know about the garbage issue? Feelings coming, that went away quickly.
I'm telling you, that is something. I have to applaud Kevin. We made the amendments to the ordinance. We started applying the pressure with the citation, and that gets results. And this will do the same thing.
I think so too.
Can we, and y'all know how to do like the PR side of this, it'd be really nice if, since we're not going to roll it back for them, if we had a sticker that said, you violated our policy after getting a warning, you will see a $50 charge on your next utility bill per week or however much it is. Just be really clear on the sticker that says you're going to see this fee now.
Yeah, well, I mean,
so they know what it's from. Because a lot of people, including me sometimes, don't pay attention. We're busy.
Sure.
They may be like, what the heck is this? Where'd this come from?
So
I still think that's babysitting.
We'll educate the first time. We're not going to roll the cart back, but we will take a picture and document.
Issue a citation. That's what I'm hearing is council's direction.
Here's the amount, it's $50. And if there's another way to do the billing other than through GUC, I just hate thinking about somebody getting their utilities turned off because they forgot to put their trash cart back in their driveway.
Get a sticker on it. You've already been warned.
The only concern that I would have potentially is a senior citizen.
Yeah.
Someone with
somebody.
an ailment. But that could be communicated or addressed or what have you. But other than that, I'm
And more than likely, they're on our list anyway, right?
I'll go lay on out there for you. You know where the problems are. We're not out there to impact the 70-year-old person. We know where our issues are, and if we.
I know.
90 years old. See, just jack it up a little.
You know what I mean.
We know we have direction. We have direction.
The other thing that citizens mentioned was people putting everything in a recycling bin. So I wanted to ask what you all were dealing with that, because that was brought up to me during those conversations.
That's a good question.
It was a good question. That might be a presentation for.
That's probably a presentation.
But we're going to have to seriously consider removing that blue cart from those folks as we continue to see this education. We're going to have to take the cart.
Okay.
Is my proposal recommendation that I think we needs a little bit more thought, a little more discussion, but and again, this is not a one-off mistake. This is folks we see week after week after week using the blue can as a green can.
Citizens are communicating, that they're seeing it week after week.
Yeah, well, and to take that a step forward, it's a contamination issue, and if we do not resolve that issue, then what that contamination issue is going to impact everybody, because we're going to be charged as a city, and we're going to have to pass that back along to every single individual that's receiving solid waste services. So it is not fair that you'd have individuals out there that are contaminating their recyclables, and it's costing and impacting everybody else. So we're going to have to look at that very closely.
I just got one more point about I've heard the term babysitting. I represent pretty much every ECU student is in District 3, because we've got the apartments, we've got the university community. And for these folks, it is, for many of them, it's their first time away from home. And I know that that's where the problems are focused. And I know that the neighborhood, the long-term residential homeowners, really, this is something that they want relief from. And I'm very glad to see that in that sense. At the same time, I want to stand up for students for whom this is the first time that they're having to face these kinds of things and this $50 penalty.
But as a parent,
Hang on, I'm not finished. Hang on. This is, for them, it's a lot of money. $50 is a lot of money. A lot of them come and they are out with income. And that's why I asked if it could be said, clearly, you are going to receive a $50 fine, on the sticker, so they understand what's going on, because for them, rules and regulations like this is their first time navigating the real world. And to be sure, they'll catch on, but I think we can do so in a way that guides them to do the right thing, rather than, kind of shocks them, or they don't know what's going on.
Staff will take a very close look at what the word.
Michael, we have an initiative coming up, the Good Neighbor Initiative.
That's right.
Is this something that we could share, or is it, before we make a decision before it comes to council, is it too early to go ahead and share those things to the Good Neighbor
We are
Initiative?
going to go ahead and as part of the Good Neighbor Initiative, we're going to put a focus on this issue itself, pulling your cards back. And that's going to be in addition to a lot of different things that we're pointing out, as far as parking, as far as noise and things like that. So it is an emphasis as part of the initiative. But it does not have to, we do not have to have the changes to any ordinance adjustments or any additional education done before that initiative. That can be done in conjunction and even after. As you saw that timeline, it might be January before this is fully implemented. Because we want to do it right.
And for me to be clear, the citizens that communicated with me, as well as the commissioner, are not in the district.
And I thank you for that, because we're not in the business also of discriminating against one area of the city or another. This does apply to the whole entire city.
That's right.
Do we have a way to look at bulky stuff? Because I do hear from a lot of people about bulky stuff that sits, and I guess people don't call to make that appointment to get it picked up. Maybe for a future presentation or future discussion.
Sure. I'll say this week with the impending weather, we're not scheduling any bulky items. We're removing what has already been scheduled with us, or what's out there. Again, education. The requirement is to call us and schedule it, right? So we can get it, and so it's not sitting out there for weeks, and your neighbors are looking at it, right? So a lot about being a good neighbor.
Kevin, just to mention, the cancellation of bulky this week is related to the storm and the weather.
Yeah.
Delbert and his crew do a great job with his collection.
Thank you.
You do. All right, thank you.
All right, Mayor. Item number 4, Traffic Safety Task Force update.
We should have skipped this one, I think.
You've been waiting all night here for Chief Sullivan.
I thought we were skipping. I just want to know about fire extinguishers. I'm going to talk to you at length about that right now.
I'm sort of thinking there might be a liability with our police department checking.
I expect that to be on the
big screen later tonight. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. I wanted to address for just a few seconds the Traffic Safety Task Force. As you all know, we have presented to you before, and tonight myself and Ms. Kirby are going to talk to you about some of the progresses that the committee has made and some of the things that, one of which I'm going to point out as a step backwards that we have encountered. A lot of our partners you see in the picture there, recently retired Deputy Chief Chris Ivey, he's laying out for 30 days. When he comes back as a part-time employee, he's actually going to continue with this effort for us because he has the historical knowledge. He's going to be helping me with cameras, and he's going to be helping me with anything related to traffic safety and street lighting and things of that nature. But as you see, our partners include ECU Health Medical Center, ECU, the university, engineering with Ms. Kirby and her staff, our department, DOT, Highway Patrol, Sheriff's Department. The room is packed when we have these meetings, and they have been the traction has been really good over the years. In fact, accolades. A couple of people that couldn't be with us tonight, but Ms. Sue Ann Pilgreen and Ms. Ellen Walson have been two driving forces with this task force. And we have, because of some of their efforts, received several of these awards on behalf of the Traffic Safety Task Force. And what you find when they move around the country is you don't see a lot of these task forces of this caliber, not put together to the depth of which ours is. And it has also helped Ms. Kirby and her department in some of their efforts to be able to say, here's what we're doing. This is the one I wanted to talk to you about in terms of taking a step back. If you recall, and you can see the numbers for yourself looking at 19, 20, 21, and 22, and just pick out our line for Greenville, and you can see that we went 7, 8, 6, and 5. So even with all the effort, and I'm going to show you what some of that effort looks like, with all the effort, we still are continuing to see our crashes be a major point of contention for us. Tracking our data.
We actually went up.
Correct. And this is not the one we want to be number one on. And we can make funny comments about being number one all we want, but the fact is, when you think about this, what does that simply mean? The more that we impact it, the more that we bring it down, the more that we're saving a lot of different things. I've heard it mentioned by members of even our council about insurance premiums, for us, it's about injuries. It's about saving life, but it affects a lot of different things. When you look at our data for 2023, which is that far right column, you can see how we track at the year end. We were just a little bit over 2022 for reportable crashes. Now remember, reportable crashes are combined damage of more than $1,000 to both the vehicles. We have to take a report for that. If it's a non-reportable crash, it would not be included in these numbers because it's not tracked by the state either. Now, one of the things that we can talk about, and it sounds like manipulation of the numbers that create these things, and I don't mean it to, but $1,000 damage between two cars today is a couple of lug nuts fell off when they collided. So that may be something else that we need to consider as our response, as whether or not we need to, as a state, up that damage amount. So what's working? What is working? What have we been able to do that is getting us some effort? I'll pause that. So Kristen Hunter, our PIO, does a lot of our work putting our message out there. And one of the things that garnered a ton of attention recently was our motorcycles being back on the roadway. And the only reason you haven't seen them on the roadway is because of staffing issues. We are finding that unit in particular can have a positive impact on an acute traffic problem very fast. If you've been over the 10th Street Bridge lately, the connector bridge, you've noticed that when you're coming off either side of it now, the traffic is flowing 35 miles an hour. In fact, it seems painful to go across it, which tells me how fast we had, even those of us who aren't thinking about it like we should, have let our speeds get on that bridge. The unit spent about a month out there, and they have impacted it in a way that the public has already noticed. They are extremely visible. They work in groups, so it gives the impression to the motoring public that there's a lot more out there than there are. They're also very hard for them to see in terms of when they're sitting on the side of the road doing a stationary speed check. So it's a bigger impact when they stop somebody. I didn't even see you. Where were you? Well, let's look more at the speedometer than where the motorcycle is. The other thing that's really working for us are our civilian traffic crash investigators. Legislation that was put in place, as you are all aware, under Bill 140, which allowed us to employ civilians to help conduct some of our traffic crashes. We are using them to do the crashes when there are no personal injury to either of the drivers, when the damage is minimal, and when we think there's not going to be a citation issued. When they run into an issue, they simply call for a uniformed sworn officer to come over and help them finish it up. They've already taken more than 400 crashes. Now, that's good because it took 400 crashes off of the uniformed officer. And if you saw a recent story, Officer Haskins was interviewed the other day. The TV called him while he was out and about, and they asked him about this in particular. And he gave a wonderful response, not knowing that he was going to be asked to speak to somebody live like that. And he talked about how it freed up the officers to focus on things in their zones and their districts that are even more impactful sometimes than crashes. So this has been a great program. We have 3 individuals working with us now. We're currently in the process of hiring a 4th. Traffic stops. In 2023 alone, we conducted 18,483 traffic stops in our town. And that orange map that you see, it looks a lot like the map that you saw earlier when Shantae was talking about where do we do things. And in Greenville, what does the traffic look like? It's not in the neighborhoods. I understand it happens in the neighborhoods, and we receive a lot of complaints when there is speeding in a neighborhood, especially a low speed zone, because you can see it. The resident can see that it's egregious. However, those major corridors are where we're having accidents that are creating major injury and major damage and loss of life, pedestrians included. So we really focus on those, and all of that shows you where the officers have been doing their work. I cannot ask for more out of them than what they are providing. They are doing exactly what we have asked of them. Of all those stops, I'm even more pleased to say that the complaints are not coming in because they're doing their part to educate and not just hand out a ticket or hand out a tongue lashing, if you will. Another thing, and we're going to start to switch out here for the first switch, and then I'll come back at the end and talk to you about a couple of recommendations. But I want to comment on this one as Ms. Kirby comes up. These delineators, I would have told you, this is one of those things that somebody like even myself says I can't stand those things. They always make me go right when I want to go left. But I can tell you from my experiences driving our town, they work. The crashes that have been reduced at these locations are significant. The injuries are almost nil. And the pedestrian accidents that were occurring, especially like on Arlington around Smithwick, and the crashes that I was seeing on a daily basis at Wimbledon are almost non-existent. So one thing that I'll talk about when I come back up to finish up is how we can use engineering aspects and design to do way more than we can with the enforcement effort that we do from your police side. Yes, sir.
Do those things like damage people's cars when they hit them? Because I noticed there's a lot of people that seem like they hit those.
Almost none. It should be almost no damage. You would see the scuff, a buffable scuff most of the time. They're not that type of rigid.
They need to make them so they do some damage.
Then we may go back to having more wrecks.
Thank you. I need a fancy theme song to go with my infrastructure recommendations. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the infrastructure projects we've been able to do through the Traffic Safety Task Force. Engineering's been partnering with some other agencies, DOT, Pitt County Schools, and one of the first ones I wanted to highlight is the improvements at Evans and Howell. So you may remember we've had a fatality there. We've had several accidents there. This effort actually, we were able to reduce the speed limit in that corridor in this section near Howell. DOT installed the crosswalk with the pedestrian refuge as well as the RRFBs. So those are the flashing pedestrian signals that you see that are actuated by the pedestrians. Right now, DOT is prepared to install a traffic signal at this location, and they hope to do that March of 25. The next site is the pedestrian signal slated for 10th and Anderson. So this is a little bit different than what we traditionally see in Greenville. We don't have any of these in Greenville right now, but it's a hawk system. And so what that is a pedestrian stoplight, basically. So when it is actuated, it will give the pedestrians a green light and it will stop traffic. And then it gives them a certain amount of time to get across. And when it's done, it'll give a green light to traffic and the pedestrians will have a red light. And it cycles through. At this particular location, we have a continuous stream of pedestrians because of the university and classes in that location, the buildings in that location. And so this gives an opportunity for both vehicles and pedestrians to move safely through that corridor. So we're excited about that. This is an NCDOT effort, and it is being funded by NCDOT. The next thing I'll talk about is our traffic calming efforts. As you may be aware, for many years we've had a considerable backlog in traffic calming. I will point out traffic calming isn't just the speed cushions that you see. There are other measures. Sometimes we start with just speed reduction. Sometimes it might be pavement markings to make it look more narrow. And then ultimately speed cushions to help calm traffic. So over the last 2 years, we've been able to complete 13 different locations, totaling about $175,000 for the city of Greenville. Moving forward, this year we have 5 new locations slated for traffic calming, and that is in the budget for this year, as well as 2 locations where we're going to do some infill. We've restudied and there need to be more cushions added. Those 2 locations are Cedar Lane as well as East Wright Road. So, Vision Zero Action Plan. You may remember council entered into or approved a resolution in May of 23 supporting Vision Zero effort. As a result of that resolution and an application, we received a Safe Streets for All grant, $500,000. The city will be putting in $50,000 as a cost share, as well as the state will be putting in $50,000 as a cost share. So ultimately, that is a comprehensive Vision Zero action plan. It looks at our high injury network. That's where the focus will be. But it will provide a plan and action steps, as well as provide implementation for small projects in our area and strategies to improve traffic safety. And then I've got our school traffic efforts. So this is a project where the city has partnered with Pitt County Schools and NCDOT. And through that partnership, we're able to install a rapid flashing beacon at the existing crosswalk on Arlington in front of J.H. Rose. The screw anchors have been put into place, and over the next week or 2, you should see that beacon go up. So our goal is to have it in place by the time the school year starts. We're excited about that one, as well as NCDOT found funding to analyze traffic around CMEPS Middle School and Elmhurst Elementary School, where we have some significant problems with traffic in those neighborhoods, specifically during pickup and drop-off for those schools. The city has funds set aside to partner with Pitt County on some of those improvements that hopefully will come out of that study. And I think this is the last project that I wanted to highlight. But again, this year with our budget, we hope to add traffic cameras to these 5 locations. These are gaps in our system right now that will help us when observing traffic and help PD as they are researching crimes that have been committed in the area. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the chief.
Yes, in terms of education, one of the things that I find so disheartening is when, just for example, on Evans Street, I've seen multiple individuals either not use the crosswalk or walk diagonally across the street. I just wonder if it's a lack of knowledge on how to use the crosswalk, or my question is, especially with the Hawk system coming, what will education look like for individuals? Because I'm assuming that they may not be knowledgeable on how to use it. If it's right there and it provides a safe way to travel across, then I'm hoping it's just due to a lack of knowledge as opposed to just not wanting to use it. So are there efforts to try to educate individuals on how to use this equipment.
Right. I'll let the chief speak about ongoing education, but as far as the Hawk system specifically goes, there will have to be a concerted effort of education, predominantly with students because they're the ones who use that crosswalk. So we'll work with ECU to make sure that they understand the intent of the signal, how to use the signal to cross safely in that area. So,
And I'll make that as a note to bring that up with the Housing Authority in our next meeting. About the,
and Mr. Calvin, just so you'll know, I actually already broached that topic with the director of the Housing Authority. We have talked a little bit about how to try to funnel residents toward that location, whether it's physical or just mental. And to that question about the training aspect and the education aspect, one of the things we found successful when we first put them in was we did a lot of stops of pedestrians and vehicles at the locations, and we passed out gift certificates for ice cream for doing it right. In other words, we were trying to, the theme was to catch them doing it right. Because it's not for, I can promise you, it's not about the citation for us, it's about the voluntary compliance. Right. Evans Street is a tough one to educate for one reason, but just that long expanse. We've got one here and not one down here, and North Carolina allows for mid-block crossing. So we've got some things that we're battling in terms of jaywalking, if you will. I'll use that term loosely and as a big umbrella, because there's a lot that comes under that umbrella. And we do educate on that. And it takes campaigns, but campaigns take person power, and that takes away from some other things, so we have to be strategic. It's often good to do that when you first install, like Ms. Kirby's talking about, and it's often really good to do that, and I'll just use ECU as an example when they first come back for class. 10th and Anderson, it's horrible for me. And when I say me, I mean me as a driver. Because you'll sit there, and I'm not even embellishing when I say I have sat there personally for 20 minutes because I timed it. Because there's never a break of the crossing, because there's also got to be a little give and take. The walker has to respect the traffic, and the traffic has to respect the walker. The Hawk system takes that out of it. But a council member used earlier babysitting, and one thing that we will never prevent is somebody just choosing to do the wrong thing. So we could have crosswalks on both ends of Evans, and if they decide to go mid-block, I'll probably never be able to fully get to that one. But it's not that we don't want to. We are always going to educate on it. Yeah, what you saw earlier with the motorcycles, when Ms. Hunter put something together like that, you would be surprised the feedback we get from the public. I mean, we get some good and some bad, but social media is where it's at. So when they see that clip like that and it's got a catchy tune and it gets their interest up, they start talking. I can promise you the overwhelming comments are positive about seeing those motorcycles back out there, for instance. And we were able to do a lot of what we're doing through that, and then you'll see that come out later when I make you aware of an announcement with some new machines and some public input from a very special donor who helped us rebirth that program. So, recommendations to wrap this up for you. One thing that we have done in the past, and I could definitely use your help with as we move forward, is championing a texting and driving legislation. We have a local congressperson who has helped us get on this bill before, and we've not been able to get it through the legislature. And this is hands-free, is what I'm talking about. Almost every vehicle nowadays have already the infrastructure for hands-free, and if they don't, it's a very, very cheap device that you can mount on your visor to keep you from having to hold the phone. One of the hardest, your question may be back to me, why aren't you writing tickets for it? It's one of the hardest things to enforce that we have currently on the books. I have to subpoena phone records to prove that you were texting, because what are you going to tell me when I stop you?
GPS.
I was using GPS. So I was making a phone call, things that are allowable. But from a lawyer, I mean. But he's exactly right. That's what I say. I would say the same thing. So I need it to be. No, I need it to be more like a commercial motor vehicle operator, where that's why you see those guys wear headsets, because they know they cannot touch that device while they're in that truck. That is against the law for them in this state. So if it can be done for them, it can be done for us, and it will only make us safer as a motoring public. Distracted driving is number one, and it is surpassing everything else, because we are a society right now where we got to answer the minute somebody calls. And then lastly, continue to seek statewide automated enforcement options through legislative action. Anything that we can put in place that multiplies what the human effort can do anywhere is going to be critical in the future. It's something that we need to continue to look at and continue to think about, but it needs to be statewide. It's an effort that when we get these things done, and I love being involved in things from a city level that do impact the whole state. And talking to colleagues across the state, this is something that we can do better about in terms of you want to make an impact. You talked about making an impact earlier with the trash collection. When drivers are receiving citations regularly, after a little while they'll say, you know what, I'm done paying those. So I'm going to change my habit, and it goes back to that voluntary compliance. Other than that is our wrap up for what we've been doing this past year. Yes, ma'am.
This is just a general observation, but we're talking about education campaigns. One thing that I'm seeing, the good thing is that we have more crosswalks, more zebra crossings, and it's a great direction for our community to be heading in, that we now have that emphasis on pedestrians and an official place. When you see a zebra stripe, cars are supposed to stop for pedestrians. And that's really a great way to go. I think the other side of that, though, the not so good side of that, is that we still, as a community, as a city, don't really know how to act when we see zebra stripes, when we see somebody in a zebra stripe. So I wonder if we could have education campaigns to go along with these new crosswalks, because if pedestrians don't have a sense, if pedestrians aren't going to be safe in zebra stripes, then we've not done our job. Just painting zebra stripes don't keep people safe. We've got to make sure they're safe. And then the other thing that is just makes my head explode is the way people speed. Not just in our community, but everywhere. It's almost like kind of a new way you do things. And I wonder if when we're looking at education campaign on crosswalks for drivers, how to behave at a crosswalk, and then education campaign on following the speed limit, which sounds so basic, but it's just needed. You could not have said it any better. Vision Zero for law enforcement, for instance, is to have zero fatalities amongst law enforcement officers responding to calls. One of the first steps was to put the seatbelt on. The second step was to slow down and be more methodical about our driving. I think we've done very well as a state in that regard. When we do our campaigns for each year for Click It or Ticket, or our crosswalk campaigns, we do through our public information, we put out those same kind of catchy blurbs on social media to get people to look at it. So we will continue to do that. And then the final piece that I would add to it is the education on just the aggression in general. I think a lot of what you see is not necessarily speed as much as it is aggression and lack of concern for our fellow man or woman operating on the road with us. And that's where we can do a lot better just as a society.
Chief, is there a way for a citizen to report traffic crime that they've witnessed?
Absolutely, and so we've got our public stuff, which you would do it. They would do it through City Compass. They can post on there if it's something they don't want to call us about immediately, but they certainly can always call in. Our communications center is open 24/7. So if they see an aggressive driver, we get a lot of those, believe it or not. They're general because a person's on their way into work and they don't really want to stop and be hassled by waiting for us to get there, but we get a lot of that. It's a white car, it's on 10th Street, and it's running people off the road. That goes out immediately, so if we have an officer in the area, we can look for it.
Pretty descriptive.
Chief, your spot checks with the motorcycles do great, and if you can continue that on the major thoroughfares at different times, because the great news is visibility, because if they're on Arlington Boulevard, Facebook lights up the purpose of Arlington Boulevard. It's exactly what you want it to be, because you want everybody to know that they're there, therefore you slow everybody down.
That's right.
It's doing great. I see that a lot, and it just needs to be done a lot more at different times, because that way you can catch the people because we know you can sit there at nighttime and hear them going up and down certain roadways. And,
yes, sir. Well, I can tell you, I personally am not a social media person, but I can tell you the impact that I've watched with social media with our accounts, impacting over 80,000 people. That's where the attention is grabbed first. So we've got to go that route and continue to push information out on that route, and we'll do that. So when you see us put that stuff out, I know the city's public information officer shares it. I encourage you all to do the same because it helps the message grow.
Thank you for your work.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Okay.
How about that? We made it through everything.
Yeah, it's only 22.
Yes, right. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, I think I got a motion by Councilmember Robinson, second by Councilmember Blackburn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. We are adjourned.